Okay, so now that y'all have had a chance to interpret the points on the graph, I'm going to go ahead and choose 2 points that I see. They may or may not have been different or the same to yours. So I'm going to go ahead and label 2 here. And I am looking specifically at where my line crosses a corner of the grid. I don't care about these points right here in the middle. That's not an exact point. I don't care about this one right here. That's not an exact point. They have to be in the corner. So if you did not see that before, I'm going to explicitly draw out the points that I see crossing the corners of each grid. And so I see that that's 3, 4. 3, 4. Remember looking at the X first and then going up Y. And then the second one I see is 6, 8. All right, so we've identified the 2 points, but they didn't just want us to pick 2 points. They also want us to explain what they mean in the context of the problem. So if I have them placed in a table, I know that that's going to help me identify each part because I'll have my x-axis label in the column, so number of days, and then number of inches specific to rain. So let's make sure we're clear, X and Y. So if I broke up these points into the table, I would have 3, 4, and 6, 8. So it's already telling me the words that are going to go into my sentences. So for example, the first one, for 3 days of rain, how many inches of rain was there? There was 4 inches, or we could say of water. So that's the first point. And then the second point I see is 6, 8. So we're going to keep adding to our notes. So now for 6 days of rain, there was 8 inches of water. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and zoom out again because we want to be able to still see our problem and our checklist. So we have explained what they meant in the context of the problem, so that's good. And now we need to determine what the unit rate is. So step 4 gets a new color. So step 4 I'm going to put over here. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, you're right. It is because this one was 2 and 3. So let me just make sure so we're all nice and neat. So number 4 is finding the unit rate. Well, what is a unit rate? Well, based on the information in our table and in our graph, we're always looking for that 1 of something, right, to figure out what that unit rate is. So I'm just going to put 1 in our table because we want to see what matches it or what is the corresponding Y value to that X value. But I don't see a whole number that I can multiply to get from 3 to 4. Right? I see that the number is getting bigger, but I don't know any number that's a whole number that can be multiplied, right? 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6. So I need to figure out a different way of how to find the unit rate. I remember that we divide, right? Remember finding that constant of proportionality, finding that unit rate is Y divided by X. So I'm just going to pick the first point. I see 4 over 3. So I'm breaking up 4 into 3 parts. So here's my seat, add a decimal, 3 goes into 10 3 times. Oh, I'm noticing a pattern. In fact, I'm noticing that this is repeating. Okay, so because it's repeating, because it's going to be an ugly number in my opinion, I'm actually going to, instead of leave it as a repeating decimal, I'm going to write it as a mixed number so that I can see it a little bit. It makes a little more sense when you see that mixed number instead of saying 1.3 repeating of something. And so in order to do that, I can actually stop at the, instead of adding the decimal point, I'm going to stop when I get a remainder. So let's edit. So I had a remainder of 1. And so just as a quick review of how to write a mixed number, we have the 3 parts right here that are going to make up the mixed number. The first is going to be the whole number. So I see 1 is the whole number of times that 3 goes into 4. This is then the remainder that's left over. And we divided it into 3 different parts. So 4/3 can be written as 1 and 1/3. And so we can go ahead and put that into our table, right? So we figured out the unit rate is 1 1/3 inches of rain for every 1. So how would I represent that point on a graph, like as an ordered pair? So our 5, our 5th part, If our unit rate is 1 and 1 1/3, I remember I write my point as x and then y. So it would be 1 and 1/3. So if I look really closely on my graph, if I move over one space to the right and then up one, I see that it's a little bit above that. So my unit rate would be plotted like right there. It's actually not exactly on the corner. It's a little bit higher up, which is why we could not identify it to begin with, because 1/3 looks really close to maybe a quarter or a fifth or, 1.4, right? There's so many different things that we could have guessed. And so we want to make sure that we are only looking at the ordered pair that's at the corner of a grid. But now that we have determined it mathematically, now we can see where it is plotted on our graph. Whew, so we are almost done. The last thing that they want us to do is write this equation to represent the graph. So looking at my final color, I do know that when we come up with when we have equations, right, we write them in the exact same format. And that format is y equals kx. Well, we already know what k is. We've identified it up here in our step 4. So all I'm going to do now is just substitute that into our equation, right? So k is 1 and 1/3. And because it's a mixed number, I'm actually going to put parentheses next to it. So I know 1 and 1/3 times any x value will get us our y value in our table. So if I put that in our table, I see that 3 times 1 and 1/3 would get us 4. 6 times 1 and 1/3 would get us 8, and 1 times 1 and 1/3 would get us 1 and 1/3. Awesome job, guys. So we have really tied up everything that we have covered within the last several lessons, all in this problem. So please make sure you have each step and that it is labeled, because we're going to do some more practice.